This is a BMW S1000XR first generation, and we are about to do the pros and cons of this bike. Now, here's the spoiler alert, way more cons than pros. Matty Motorcycle coming at you, casting shade. The first generation of this motorcycle standing right in front of me. Now, everybody out there, before we get into the cons and hurting feelings too bad, I just want to point out and remind everybody that I do my reviews from a performance standpoint. You want to know what the bike can do and what it's going to be used for. So, before anybody gets too bent out of shape, you're going to get bent out of shape, especially if you own one of these. I just want to remind everybody, performance, performance, performance. What can this do? What should it do? And what's its competition doing that this maybe isn't? Let's get into it. Before we hurt any feelings, let's get into some stats. First up, 999cc engine ripped off of the S1000R, not the S1000RR. So this is a detuned version of the detuned version. After that, 160 horsepower, 83 foot-pounds of torque, about 550 pounds. You have a 5-gallon tank, get about 40 miles per gallon. Now let's get into some pros. Okay, why I think it's a great bike. First up, wind protection is phenomenal. These upright adventure bikes and naked bikes, sometimes they're a little bit skinny. They don't really block the wind like they're supposed to. The way this thing is shaped, the way the windscreen is, and these little hand guards definitely duck the air all around you. You're in this really great little bubble. Very well thought out by BMW. Thank you. Next, the rear brake is great. You can stop this whole thing with that rear brake, help you adjust your angle into some turns, and definitely keep it nice and level as you're pulling into a stoplight. Rear brake, really great. Great feel, lots of power for the size of this bike. Then, a center stand. Anybody who's watched any of my other videos, I'm a huge fan of center stands. It just saves some space, makes it easy to stand it up on dirt or gravel or whatever you happen to get stuck in, makes it a lot of confidence that you're not going to knock over your bike or the wind isn't going to take it. Awesome idea. Thank you, BMW. Love my center stands. Then the transmission on this machine is really great. The quick shifter and auto blipper work just as you think it should. Super smooth, quick, sharp shifts. And when you're going down through the gears, the auto blipper works absolutely fantastic. It's brilliantly done, matches the revs great. I love watching that analog tachometer fly up and down. Again, big fan of the analog tachs. I think they should always be on two pieces of every bike. TFT dash with an analog tach, I think it's great. Then the price. This is only $18,000. And you're like, well, Matt, $18,000 is still a lot of money for a motorcycle, but not for an exotic BMW adventure style motorcycle. All the rest of the adventure bikes in this category from Europe are all more money. My Japanese ones, of course, they're going to be cheaper. But this one, for what you're getting, I guess could be considered a bargain. After that, the looks and the styling. Most of the adventure bikes out there, I think, just look kind of goofy. They're all afterthoughts. This actually has a superbike front nose. It's super sharp, angled. I think the way they did the lines of this thing is great. Great looking bike. And of course, this M package looks so great. This HP style paint job, the red, white, and blue from BMW, I think they did a great job. And the last pro is that it's being replaced for 2020. They update it, they're putting a whole bunch of good new parts on it, updating the engine, updating the frame, updating the suspension. Thank goodness this is gonna go away. Now let's go into the cons. The cons. First up, and the thing I'm most hurt about, is this engine. Yes, it's fast. There's no question about it. You can definitely carry some speed. You can definitely beat any Harley Davidson, Indian, any other cruiser bike if that's what you're going to use this for as a cruiser. But I'm coming from a performance standpoint. And the engine is slow revving. Like I said, it's 2 steps down from the S1000RR. The S1000RR, single R, then this. Detuned 1 step further. The torque really doesn't come on until much higher in the rev range. It really doesn't pull. This thing doesn't jump off the line at all, and coming out of corners, unless you're high up in the rev range, you really don't get the speed and power that I think it should from what they're calling a sport adventure bike. The power's not there. And since it's a derivative of a super bike, everybody claims this is an upright super bike. I didn't get that. I really didn't get that sensation. Then the comfort factor. I think the pegs are too close to the seat, the bars are way too high up, and they're just in a funny spot. It's just not a happy position as far as moving it around and turning fast and being comfortable riding fast. I guess if you were riding smooth on the highway, it is stable in a straight line on the highway, but I don't think that that's what this bike should be used for. I think this is a upright sport bike, or should have been an upright sport bike, not a cruiser. But if you're going to cruise on it, I guess you're going to be in a much happier position. After that, this seat. Now, motorcycle seats should be rounded. They should be convex, not concave. Not crazy rounded, it shouldn't be a hump, but you should be able to slide side to side very easy. This seat holds you in place as if it was meant for like an M3 or an M5 or a sport package car to hold your butt in position while you're doing aggressive driving. When you're doing aggressive riding, you want to be able to slide your butt side to side, shift your weight to pitch it into that corner just that much harder while keeping the bike a little bit more upright. On this bike, it actually is hard to do. The seat doesn't seem right. Now, the passenger seat is rounded correctly. That feels just like it's supposed to. But this seat, I just don't like it. It's got these edges, and you have to kind of hop your butt over them in order to get into the corner, and it kind of puts a weird feeling in between your butt cheeks. I'm not into it. After that, the passenger seat, while it's shaped right, is too tiny, all right? It's not enough for a proper passenger to be comfortable for long distances. Maybe for a short ride down to the water or something, or a quick through the mountains, but overall, this really isn't a luxurious passenger accommodation. And while we're talking about passenger stuff, the bags that it comes with really aren't that big for much longer than an overnight stay. The headlights are too dim. And now let's get into the performance / riding impressions. We're still in the cons. First up, these brakes. The brakes, some would call them progressive. I call them lame. Very weak, not appropriate for a bike with this type of power. Once you do get up in the rev range and you get going, it really doesn't slow you down appropriately. You've got to really pull them in and grab them hard in order to get this thing to stop. Again, not good for performance riding. You got to stop when you want to stop. You don't want to have to grab this and smash it into the handlebar. After that, the turn-in is super slow. Like I said, these bars are just in the wrong place. They're too far back and too high up. They just need to be a little bit more forward, a little bit more relaxed, so that you can put less weight on them, so that you can move this bike side to side fast. Turn-in and the frame are just okay. Again, if you're riding with a bunch of Harleys, you're going to hurt everybody's feelings because you're going to outperform them. But if you're riding with what this is supposed to be competitions with, the Multistrada or the Super Adventure, you're definitely going to get left behind. I'd even go so far as to say a GS handles way better than this thing does. I'm sorry, BMW. You know that's where my heart is, but this thing isn't up to par. After that, the throttle response is slow. Like I said, you got to get it way up in the rev range before you feel any kind of kick of the torque. So you really got to wring this neck all the time. And that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be an adventure tour. You're supposed to be comfortable, just little throttle inputs. This thing, you got to twist it all the way out, which I guess could be fun, again, if you're used to a slower machine, but it's not for me. Then the suspension. The rear shock with the ESA is actually pretty good. It gives you a pretty stable feel in a straight line, but this front end just doesn't inspire confidence. I would call it numb. You don't really feel what's going on in the front of the bike, especially as you're turning in and out. There's just no sensation coming up through the bars. And while we're talking about the bars, everybody says, wow, these things are so vibey. You go on the internet and you can read forever that there's a lot of vibration in the bars. Not really. Anybody who says that obviously hasn't ridden a Harley Davidson. That thing will shake your forehead loose from the vibration. But what it really does is it limits what you can see behind you in the mirrors. The mirrors shake just like that scene in Jurassic Park when the T-Rex is chasing you and the water starts vibrating. That's what those mirrors are. So you really can't tell what is behind you. You can tell if something's behind you, but you can't tell what it is. You can't see it clearly because they're shaking so badly. To sum up this machine, it's not awful, it's just not as good as it should be. When you add up the sum of these parts, it should come out to more than what this bike is. This is definitely less than the sum of its parts. On paper, if you put a Superbike engine in an upright seated position with dynamic ESA and Brembo brakes, this thing should be amazinger. But it just isn't. It just falls short. Thank goodness that we're going to have a 2020 XR in here in the next couple of weeks. My fans out there, stay tuned. And if you completely disagree with everything I said, make sure you leave it in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. Bring on the arguments, because the truth of the matter is, I think this could and should be way better than it is. Matty Motorcycle, my friends at Gold Coast Motorsports, gotta love you guys. We'll see you at the next one.